mind if I ask you a question? Write that down. Before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? Now, that is the way I begin every new interview with every client. Before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? Now, what does my prospect say to me? No. What is he thinking? Or what is she thinking? We're not getting started yet. I don't have to get defensive. What am I thinking? We're starting. Before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you have a will? What will people say? Some will say yes, most will say no. It doesn't matter what they say. I have a response. Every interview I go into, I know exactly where I want to go. If you are driving to a destination, you must have your address you're going to, right? You don't go into an interview without knowing where you want to go in that interview. You begin the interview by saying, before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? And you ask the most important question of that entire interview. It opens up the entire dialogue. Before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? How many of you have qualified in the past or this year currently for $1 Million Roundtable? How many of you want to qualify for $1 Million Roundtable? What does it take to qualify for $1 Million Roundtable? Do you mind if I ask you a question? Do you know what it takes to qualify for MDRT? 160 FYC. 480 premium. How can you get there if you don't know the destination? You must write those numbers down in your planner and divide it up. It's a big number. 160 is a big number. Divide it up. Divide it into 12 months. Divide it into 52 weeks. Divide it into 5 working days a week. Make the number small and attainable. It's a big number when you look at it on a page. But if you divide it up and you make it small and you tackle that not by the year or the month or the week, but by the hour. How much do I need to do every hour in order to have that be real in my life? Mohan mentioned that I have been in the life insurance business since the age of 21. It's true. I started when I was only 21 and still in college. For me, it was a part-time job. I had purchased a life policy when I was 19 years old. I was studying for the television and radio industry. I thought I wanted to be in television broadcasting. A friend of my family sold me a small life policy as a long-term plan for saving and protection for my family, even though I was not married, even though I had no children, but I saw the benefit of the life plan when I was just 19 years old. When I was 21, I had been working in college part-time at a clothing store, and I really didn't like retail. I really didn't like having to work on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays. I really didn't like it. And they said, why don't you consider a career in the life insurance business? Now, I was still in college. I said, anything is better than selling clothes. So I said, okay. So they put me in a training program, and when I graduated from college, they offered me a full-time job. I was married shortly after graduating from college, and I had my first child on the way very shortly thereafter. The responsibility to provide for my family was all on me. I went to my manager and I said, I need a raise. And my manager said, Mark, your raise will be effective when you are. And so that year was my first year of qualifying for MDRT. It was 1981, and I was 24 years old. I did exactly what I have suggested to you. Write this number in your planner on January 1. But you can do it now, in August. If you haven't done any business this year, write that number down, divide it over the remaining months. You have contests to help incentivize you. But you should just write that number. Divide it into the number of working days you have left in the year. Working days, Not every day. You must have balance. You must have time with your family. You must have personal time for exercise and spirituality. You have to have balance, but you have working days. You know what those working days are. Put that number into your planner, into your calendar, and break it down into the hours. How much business must I do every hour? How many phone calls? If you know that your closing ratio is 25% or 10%, you can figure out exactly how many phone calls to get so many appointments, to get so many opportunities to present, to close. Everybody in this room can make MDRT this year, even if you have no business yet so far. I understand there's a wonderful contest for people hired this year between May, June, and July. Is that true? 5 years MDRT and 1 COT. Huge bonus. Will you write this number down in your planner and set it as a goal? It's an easy goal. You can do it. Everybody in this room can do it. Everybody in this room can be in the top. We have about 100. Everybody can be in the top 100. No problem. Everybody can do it. What I want to do is I want to spend the time we have, about 2/3 of the time, giving you some ideas on different concepts that have worked for me. Now, it'll be your responsibility to take these ideas that I have from the U.S. and translate them to your local market. I don't know the specific product design. I don't know exactly the tax rules. So it's your job to figure out how to translate. I can't do that. But I can give you ideas that I believe are transferable and apply in any market, anywhere in the world. Okay? The first concept that we have to use, I believe, as the cornerstone of all that we do is human life value. It's an economic term.